trying to be perfect, which, as I've discovered, is a sneaky kind of self-hatred, because I'm not accepting who I am. I'm asking myself to be something else. Hello there, beautiful human. Melinda Joy, Crossroads Storyteller here with an update regarding my deep dive into the Creative Liberation Now deck. I will be pulling at least one card a day from Creative Liberation Now until I successfully publish it on a wider scale. If you want the longer story, you can check out my beginnings video somewhere around here. And if you have not already, like and subscribe to support this project of mine. As always, the link to the waitlist for the Creative Liberation Now deck is in the description notes below. So today, I plan to report on my life and practice over the past month, update you on my reading and deck usage, take a closer look at the Creative Liberation Now cards that I pulled this last month, and finally, share my plans for next month. If you are here for a particular portion, feel free to use the timestamps to locate your desired section. And if you hear me reference something you want to explore, check out my reference list in the description notes below. Okie doke. So, if it wasn't clear already, I completely and utterly failed at my mission or my goal, my quest this last month. And you know, I mean fail. Which I want to get into because it's a big word for me and my life and the rewilding process I'm doing for myself. So the way in which I failed was I didn't pull a single Creative Liberation Now card. I made myself this super sweet basket. I think I've showed you all before. That had everything I thought I needed for studying the next section of this deck, and I didn't. I just completely ignored the entire box, the entire month. If you don't remember or you didn't view my last video, last month I felt like I was behind the whole month. And I was not behind in the sense that I was posting hashtag #DropEm78 along with everyone, but I was behind in my own personal schedule. So I was literally behind, not just feeling behind. And my schedule is a moon rhythm. I like to create with the cycles of the moon. So I have discovered that it works really well for me to record my video right before the new moon so that I get to begin the new month with the new moon, and I get to just like put the whole month before sort of away after I recapped it on this video for you all. And then I like to publish my video by the full moon and then reflect and rest during the waxing gibbous, and then prepare to record again with the waxing crescent. But I was recording the last video I published. I was recording that after the new moon. So this last month for me was actually a shorter month, because I had eaten into it with the last month. So yeah, when I'm saying months, I mean literal moon cycles, which, you know, is neither here nor there. You do things by the calendar month cycles if you want to. I just find that working with the moon is really effective for me because I want to be slow and inward when the moon is not in the sky, and I want to be in the night sky, and I want to be big and loud and expressive when the moon is in its fullest, brightest stage. And so yeah, just working with that, I have found, helps me create and rest in a balanced way. But historically, failure is one of my biggest fears, which is, like I said, one of the things I'm working to rewild within myself, because failure, as I have experienced it or feared it, is definitely connected to perfectionism and trying to be something more than human, trying to be perfect, which, as I've discovered, is a sneaky kind of self-hatred, because I'm not accepting who I am. I'm asking myself to be something else. I'm asking myself to be a machine, or, you know, whatever could possibly come close to perfection. So yeah, I think some puritanical ideas around original sin and worthiness is a part of that. I think going to a colonial school system where I was taught to follow directions instead of learn. I was taught to memorize instead of explore. Those things have contributed to a feeling of unworthiness, and I think that's where perfectionism comes in, because I gotta prove that I'm worthy. And I think that has that gets caught up in then feeling distrustful of my natural inclinations, because I need to force myself to do things instead of allowing myself to do things naturally. And then I have trouble trusting my natural cycles, and, like I said, get stuck in this perfectionist trap. So once I had already messed up my moon rhythm, and I could feel it, it didn't feel good trying to do things out of rhythm. I was having a struggle. I don't know if you could tell in the last video. And so instead of, oh yeah, so like in grad school, the sensation in my body that I had after getting out of rhythm with the moon and falling behind in my own system, I identified that it felt the same way it did in grad school during finals week. Every finals week in grad school, I would just like hate life, because all I wanted to do was explore some new thing I had just discovered, but instead I had to force myself to write all of these papers that I had been procrastinating on. Some of them I wasn't even sure what I was trying to say, and it was just hell. So yeah, instead of reliving hell, I gave myself a break. And I thought it was helpful to show my inner child and my inner teen and my inner young adult that it's okay to fail. It's okay to totally 100% fuck it all the way up. And it's okay to follow what has me distracted also. Like, the distraction's not bad or evil or wrong or hateful or whatever. It's also good. And so, yeah, I think I was successful in the experiment, and I'm now excited to teach myself that I can both sort of tie up the loose ends from the distraction and go back to the original plan, which has never happened before because I've always gotten caught up in the shame around failing. And then I don't honor the distraction as something that's valuable, so I don't finish that either. And then I just begin a different project, which is frustrating to watch myself do. So yeah, it felt really good to try out a different way of responding to myself and responding to my we gotta find a better word for failure, because even though I've taught myself this last month in at least some way that failure is not bad, the word is still gross in my mouth and in my body. So I need to figure out a better word to label when I've stopped the plan, when I've said pause and gone on a side adventure, so that it's not failure. Yeah, we'll see how that, I'll mull over that and explore that this next month. See if I can think up a better word to label this process. So yeah, what did I do? I'll show you what I did do. I got a bag. Okay, so this bag is by Alejandra. I think that's how she pronounces her name. Leon. She does the okay, I have one of her decks here. She does the Stars Divine, and she does another Lioness Oracle, and then another deck that is something about a muse. Okay, so this is her bag. This is her Hermit card. And I like having it as my tarot bag because I'm officially one of those people where everywhere I go, I bring a tarot deck or 5. So I might as well just like lean into it and have a bag for it. That's what I thought. And what better than a tarot themed bag? So this is what happened instead. I first got into Squid Cake. I was continuing to read Like the Devil, read the book Read Like the Devil, and that, in addition to the booklet in this deck, was really helpful in practicing this Marseille style tarot, even though I'm not super well practiced at it. So what's cool about this book is it gives function in addition to keywords, which I thought was super cool. and then describes the visual. So it just gave me an idea of how someone might look at this and see more than 8 cups. How to see the pictures that are in between the pictures. And then, so in doing so also, I realized that the Marseille style of pulling cards for me is much less of a like, what does my inner world look like today? And is much more of a like, what are the pieces of this project I'm about to do? And how can I do those pieces intentionally? So I did this, what I just described, I did that for the editing and uploading of the last video. So I'll show that. Then I decided I wanted to explore playing cards, and I ordered several books, and this was the first one I decided to explore. And this book is brilliant because it teaches you playing cards through stories. So this is literally a book of stories, one story for each card, and the stories are good stories. And I think this is brilliant, not just because I'm Crossroads storyteller, but because stories are a really effective way to learn anything. Our memory is especially interested in storytelling details, and so having the context of the story is just like a really brilliant way to learn anything, but also cards. And so one of the things I did was I took this deck out of my high school playing card deck collection, and I wrote out all of the details for each of the cards. So Lady's Triumph is the way this book describes that card, and each card has like a name and then some keywords and the story title. So this will be super cool to more intentionally use once I've completed this book. But as you can see, a lot more happened this month, so I did not finish that book. I then explored one of my Once Upon a Time expansion packs, and I used only the expansion pack. I'll show you the spread I did. Basically, I took each section of each suit, for lack of a better term, and I shuffled each suit and pulled 3 lines, I believe. Each line got one of the suits, and told myself a story with that lineup. It was like 3 lines of a story, or 3 parts to the story, and I really liked that experiment, and I think I'm going to keep using the expansion packs that way. Yeah, it was just super brilliant. I really enjoyed it. Then I more seriously explored my Sawyer Redux edition of the RWS, and when I first got this deck, I bought it blind. I don't usually buy decks blind, but this deck in the description was everything I had been looking for in an RWS, and so I bought it on the spot. And then I opened it and I was like, holy shit, these faces are creepy. And so I put it away. And then hubby had like some questions. He was just like hypothetically asking. I was like, you could ask the cards. And so I pulled this deck out to let him pull his own cards for his own questions, just to see how that went for him. And I realized the reason why I thought they were creepy was just because they're different. Everything else is the same, you know, minus the background, and the faces are different. But they're really well done faces once you get over the fact that they're different. And so I think this now may be my most favorite RWS. I have to decide if it's too special to use for other people, or if it's just the perfect thing to share with others. I did try out my Klimt tarot. This is, I think, probably the one and only tarot deck I have, quote unquote, exclusively for the artwork. And so I pulled it to ask a couple questions, and I got my questions answered, but I didn't really enjoy the process very much. And so I think this is going to be a pretty exclusive, like, journaling kind of deck, or like art inspiration kind of deck, and much less so a divination deck. It is very beautiful, which, like I said, is the only reason I bought it, and the only deck I've bought because it was beautiful. And I'm glad I have it because I really like Klimt. But I'm not buying another deck just for the artwork again. Then, okay, so I had sort of been futzing around with a couple of things, and then so I had already discovered Professor Charles Porterfield through a lecture with Cauldron Black. And the Cauldron Black puts on a yearly, for lack of a better term, festival, or symposium, or, you know, whatever, where there's classes that you can take and there's lots of guests. And so I had been recommended to order and review his Chava and Lilith lecture, and the person who suggested I do that I trust a lot. And so when she said to do it, I did it. I didn't ask any questions, and it blew my fucking mind open onto the walls. Sorry, way too graphic. It was phenomenal. And so I was having a conversation with this friend this last month, and she was like, you know, he has other classes and they're pre-recorded, so you can just buy them and listen to them now. And he offers readings. You can, like, talk to him directly. So first thing I did was I bought and listened to his Diviners on Divining conversation lecture hangout, which was brilliant. And then I listened to the Art and Artifice of Divining with Playing Cards, which was also super, super brilliant. And I used this plain, normal American deck that I also got out of the same collection from high school. And I started reading his book. And then I got to the point in the month where I needed the break that I described, and I pulled out a comic book, because one of the things Professor Charles Porterfield suggests is that you read in runs. That's like a series of cards all together that are saying one thing. Like it's like a sentence or a description or something. It's not a spread where there's designated positions that mean things. And someone in the class was like, well, how do you read a run if you are used to reading in spreads? And Professor Porterfield said, comic books. Comic books is how your brain reads a spread. So, you know, when, sorry, this book is pretty graphic. You know, just by looking at the story, what's happening. You don't need someone to say, now the momentum is increasing, now the momentum is decreasing. Like, you don't need that, you just know. And so I read half of this. It's the Compendium 1, and 100% I can attest it helped. I looked at any cards I pulled the rest of the month first as a run before I considered reading it any other way, and it was so much easier just after reading what, like 35 issues of a you probably don't need to read that much of a comic book to to practice, but I found it a very effective method for practice. So just to complete out the rest of the month, I then pulled out one of my Visconti decks because I wanted to see if what I had learned with the playing cards would affect my ability to read the Visconti deck, and it was so cool. I could, like, one of the things Porterfield talks about is how playing cards are the parent to tarot decks, and so if you know this, you have a better perspective on this, and 100% accurate. Super cool. I could like see some of these cards in these cards. And then because I love like just the super sort of psychological inner world kind of tarot, and not just the how is my project gonna go tarot, or I guess cartomancy, because neither of these are tarot decks. I pulled out the Stars Divine and the Sovereign Oracle, and I'll show you at least one of those spreads that I did, and or runs that I did, and I really enjoyed those together. I thought they worked really well together. So then when it came to the Creative Liberation Now deck, like I said, I did not pull a single card, but I did think about it. I thought about the deck the whole month, and I listened to Ayla Nereo pretty nonstop, and I'm pretty sure that Ayla Nereo and the creators of Creative Liberation Now, they're on the same page. I almost had the idea, I was like, I'll just like assign each of Ayla's songs to one of the cards or one of the suits or something like that, and which I might do at some point, but yeah, they're talking the same language, and so it was super cool to be listening to her and thinking of Creative Liberation Now, even though I wasn't pulling cards. So my plans for next month are to get back into pulling a card from Creative Liberation Now every day. And part of the reason I stopped was I thought I needed to do a Drop 'em 78 card, but I realized during my break that just pulling a card will keep me with my goal. So when I would like to, I will consider picking back up, or at least doing some of Drop 'em 78 / Drop 'em 108, because I still want to keep up with that, even if I am not doing it right away. Then I'm going to also re-listen to Professor Porterfield's talks and take some notes, because both of those classes that I purchased, the conversation as well as the lecture teaching one, they are both going to disappear at some point. So I'm going to want to preserve those through notes. Then I'm going to continue practicing my playing cards and my my Marseille and my Visconti decks as I desire, but I can't stay away. I've tried to set it down several times and I keep picking it back up. When I'm not turning cards, I am holding a wiggly baby. That's why I'm randomly stopping showing you cards. We'll see. I would really like to complete a lot of reading I've started. I've warned you before, I do this where I like to read a whole bunch of books all at the same time. And so I've gotten myself into that situation. I would like to complete the Saga comic book, although I definitely do not need to read it nearly as fast as I have been reading it. And it would probably be good for me to read it slower because it's a little bit intense and a little bit, as my friend said, too relatable. So it's a fantastic comic book. If you've not entered comic books and you're interested in comic books, it's a really good place to start. Then I want to also finish Porterfield's A Deck of Spells. I want to keep reading Read Like the Devil. I would like to keep reading 78 Degrees of Wisdom, Joyful Toddler, my Firesider book, and perhaps Beatrix Gates, the Rachel Pollack fiction. So obviously not all of that reading is going to happen, but all of that reading is in my currently reading pile. And then I didn't mention it, but I did start making the first step of my stencils. So they're not complete stencils yet, but they are on their way to being stencils. And so I'm going to keep making my stencils, and I'm going to start collecting the information that I need to put into that next deck creative project. So yes, that's everything. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to see more of what's coming. And so many blessings. Woohoo! We got the whole video in, Heron. Oh my gosh. Sorry about that, everyone.